Hello, Solies. Oh my goodness. If you're watching the YouTube, you have got such a romantic aesthetic because it's 8:30 at night. I am in a robe. I'm painting you guys a pretty picture. I've got the dim lighting. I've got a candle on my altar behind me. Do you see that? Oh my gosh. Because I really did want to sit and record an episode for today. But as life has it, as the pattern has emerged for me, I don't think I can wait until Sunday to record my podcast because that has been the habit that I've gotten into. And it's not a good habit, guys. It's not good because my Sundays end up blowing out in good ways. Like last night was so much fun. I'll tell you guys about that in a moment. But then I'm left going, oh, I didn't record the podcast and I want to do it today. And Monday is like my biggest mum day, zero help. Trent leaves before I get up in the morning, and then he doesn't get home until 6. And then, it's just life. It's just life. And especially when this is an independently produced podcast where I don't every I was going to say everyone else is doing everything. No, I'm doing everything. I don't have a co-host to lean on. I'm not getting paid for this. So it is one of those things that is just, yeah, I don't even want it to take a back seat because it's the priority of my work and I love doing this. But at the same time, I need to be, yeah, honest with what I can fit in. So moral of the story is I'm not going to be recording my podcast on Sundays anymore. I think that's where I'm shooting myself in the foot. And it probably is around in a roundabout way, like life telling me that I should reserve my weekends for me. And I don't know if you guys remember, I did mention this when I was getting really overwhelmed at the end of last year and feeling like, oh, I don't really have space or time for myself. I'd love to have my weekends back. And so I stopped scheduling my heart space ceremonies for me personally on a weekend. And so that was like the first step. But I think what I'm being shown now is other ways where I can reclaim my energy and my time for myself. And I think pushing the podcast back to really trying to record it on a Friday and latest recorded on a Saturday so you guys can get your Monday episode is the way to go. It's like I can't consider Sunday recording time. And it's been this 2 weekend in a row thing where I've had to recognize the pattern and go, okay, something needs to change. Something's got to give. I think for me, the hard part has been because I've been taking on more readings and my Fridays have had 2 readings more when usually I have one. And so then I have a third reading on the Saturday. And once my little girl's schedule has started to become busier, so we go straight to dance class on Saturday once I'm done with my reading, my life has blown out and become fuller. And it's that transition thing as well, where when I'm in work mode, I'm in work mode. When I'm in mum mode, I'm in mum mode. And then getting back into work mode after I've been in mum mode is quite difficult. So anyway, I'm just in a roundabout way talking out. It's a genuine logistical thing for me because I like you all starting your week with the Monday app. And then I like recording the What's the Vibe on Tuesday for your Wednesday. That is a nice rhythm in terms of production. And I just need to get into a better habit of prioritizing recording the show on a Friday or a Saturday. So that's where my head's at. That's where my head's at. But I'm actually really looking forward to this episode because if you're in the Soulies group on Instagram, you'll know that on Wednesday in Two Sleeps, it will be 1 year since I launched my second book, Saying Yes to You. So this episode is going to be a reflection on the year that's been when it comes to the book itself, its performance, how I feel about it being a year. And then I got some really great questions, like lots of them in the group. So we're going to talk all about that. But before I do, I thought I'd give you guys just a little recap of the week that's been. So I definitely, I don't know about you guys, but I have felt the palpable shift into Aries season and the astrological new year and all of this like fire horse energy. I'm like, oh, here we go, it's go time. Like I felt it on Saturday. I was like, we are, and obviously Mercury is now direct and there's a lot of forward momentum and it's like it's not just the fast pace energy I'm feeling, but it's also like I feel uh, energized and motivated and inspired and like I have a clear direction again. I don't know if you guys are feeling that too, but I definitely am feeling this like swirling of energy. And this weekend, I actually sat down on Saturday with Liv, my homeopath, for a check in. We haven't had one in about 6 months. It's come up to a year that I've started working with homeopathy. it's a hard one to pronounce. I tell you what, like it's one of those words that you don't think it's hard, but it is. It's like a mouthful. Anyway, it's coming up to a year, and so we had a check-in. And as you guys know, I've been working with, firstly, it was carcinosin, and then it shifted into phosphorus, which is my constitutional remedy. And I got my bloods tested last week just to gauge, after a year of, doing all of this homeopathic work, what shifted in my levels. And health-wise, since I became a mum, I haven't had really solid blood test results. Obviously, part of that is postpartum. Part of that is the fact that I was pescatarian for 17 years, including all the way through my pregnancy and the first 6 months of my little girl's life. So the first 6 months of postpartum, I didn't eat red meat at all. And I do believe that that was a big, I mean, I had the lowest iron in the history of iron reserves. So that was part of it. Not all of it, definitely not. Chronic inflammation, hypothyroidism, the mold. Obviously, there was a lot of toxicity and has been for, or was for up to almost 4 years of my daughter's life. I'm going to say 3 years, 3 years postpartum. And so my last blood tests were done in February last year, which was only a few months, maybe coming up to 6 months after we lived in this house and I was actually properly detoxing the mold because of the environment that I had moved into in this clean, spacious environment. And then last year, as you guys know, I went on this massive health journey and I took you guys along with me. So, cleaning out my colon episode, I go into all of the different, the coffee enemas that I do regularly, the intestinal cleanse I did, passing the mucoid plaque, really scaling back on the supplements I was taking and being more committed to, the value of the nutrition I was eating, going into ketosis for 3 months, getting my morning sunlight, wearing my blue light blockers, which I'm not doing right now. Oh, uh-oh. So I did a lot, and I was very intrigued to see, okay, what's changed in the markers. And the difference between the blood tests I got done last week and the blood tests I got done a year ago is the only supplement I have been consistently taking is magnesium. That's it. Like a year ago, I was on a cocktail of things. I'm talking like upward of 10 to 12 supplements. All my money. I don't know if you guys remember in the earlier episodes when I relaunched the podcast, but I was spending like, I think I did the maths of the second year of my daughter's life, and it was like $25,000 on my health, supplements, blood tests, appointments, like specialist appointments, lymphatic drainage, like so much money was going into my health. And then it wasn't until I shifted into the homeopathic remedies that we started to work on actually the energetics of my physical health. And yes, the physical was part of it, but not all of it. And that's what I love about homeopathic medicine is it's medicine for the quantum. And so, as you guys know, as I've shared in the podcast, there's been so much shift in my micro and macro. And I love that ability to witness the internal ripple, then externally rippling as well. And yeah, it's not been easy. The carcinosin especially really took me down, really showed me, the relationships that weren't serving me in my life. It like ended friendships, it in brutal ways, like me realizing people didn't have my best intentions. And like there was a lot of heartbreak and really challenging time in the remedies. But I feel like based on the blood results that I got back on the weekend, like wow, because I was very intrigued. I'm like, okay, I was in ketosis for about 3 months toward the end of the year. And then it came to Christmas time and I let myself like go wild, go off queen. Like she's Maltese. She wants to have a Maltese Christmas. Maltese Christmas equals carbs, carb, carb, carb. Since Christmas, I have not even attempted to be in ketosis. I've just let myself run wild. On top of that, I've actually been really lax with gluten. And that doesn't mean like I'm eating all the gluten all the time, but as an example, Trenny, my husband, Trent, you guys know that. I don't know why I explain that every time. He's a Taurian. We know this. He makes like focaccia, sourdough. He makes pasta. Like he makes a lot of delicious gluten-y foods. And so the last 3 months I've been eating those things. Like today, I had his focaccia that he made on the weekend with my little girl. I had a sandwich on the focaccia, gluten, right? So I did have a thought that it will be interesting to see if my levels have shifted because obviously, oh, you guys might know this, not know this, but gluten feeds the thyroid antibodies in a negative way, which is why I've had to be gluten free because I have thyroid stuff, right? It's not because I'm celiac, I'm not, but I am gluten intolerant and it feeds into inflammatory markers for my thyroid. So that's why I've been gluten free for quite a while. when I had my psychic reading the other week with Rebecca Gleason, I debriefed that with you guys. Yeah, I did. I asked her, I'm like, am I going to have to be in ketosis for the rest of my life? Because that was when I felt the least inflamed. But also, that's not a fun way to live. I am a foodie at heart. I love food. I love gluten. I love pasta. I love carbohydrates. I do not want to be in ketosis for my whole life. And I also find it very unfair that some of us have to be and some of us aren't. Anyway, what she reflected back to me is like, Holly, your body just doesn't respond particularly well to a heavy carb diet. And that is my diet of choice. It's my love language, is carbs. Anyway, I've been really lax and not in a way of like, um, I've just not put any pressure on myself. It's kind of been this energy of like, I'm going to wait for the new astrological year to start. I'm going to wait for that momentum to come through. Anyway, got the bloods back, sat down with Liv on Saturday. Guys, my markers are really good, really good. Like there's nothing diabolical. I'm going to get some deeper thyroid testing just based on some symptoms that I'm experiencing in my body, mainly water and weight retention around my stomach that still kind of doesn't make sense. And some, well, for lack of a better word, constipation. I'm going every day, but I'm not going completely. So TMI, it's this podcast, it's not TMI. What was really exciting to see in the bloods were my cortisol levels dropped significantly, and I've always had extremely high cortisol, but they were through the roof, like at like a 700 and something last February. They've dropped to like a 400 and something this year. So that is a huge marker. The biggest marker that's kind of like not great, but it's room for improvement is inflammation for me. And I'm not surprised by that because I am an inflammatory body. I think part of that is because I am a sensitive body. I'm an energetically sensitive body. And so not only am I picking up on, she's been eating gluten for 3 months and she's not been moving her body as much as ideal, but also energetic sensitivity and picking up on other energies. When I had the reading for that energy that was so dense and dark the last couple of months ago, that would cause inflammation in my body. And this is what Rebecca Gleason was saying to me. She's like, Holly, in the work that you do and the work for any of us as healers and energetic practitioners, our body digests energy as well as food. And that goes for everyone, I believe. But when you're extra sensitive, it just means that we need a cleaner body to start with, in terms of like a more robust body to start with so that we don't end up inflamed. So I think that there are a few moving parts with this. Anyway, that inflammation marker is the only, it's not even a point of concern. It's like, okay, let's keep an eye on that. And I will be sitting down with my naturopath, Emily Yates, in a couple of weeks to get her perspective of the bloods too. But when it came to live in homeopathy, we decided, she's like, basically these blood results have validated for her desire to put me into some different remedies, which is really exciting. So I'm going to be starting 2 new remedies and stopping the remedies I've currently been taking. So that's going to be a whole new world, a new fantastic point of view. So watch this space. I won't tell you the remedies yet. I won't reflect on them until I start to take them, but I am excited. I've been like rabbit holing what they are and what they represent. And they're kind of the vibes that I'm getting from these remedies. It's like generational masculine lineage healing stuff. And then there's a lot around my hormonal health and, birth trauma, breastfeeding trauma, the physical body, the body as a woman. So I'm really intrigued to see what these remedies will activate and should the inflammation markers go down, because that's kind of all that my bloods are pointing to that needs inverted commas work and focus right now, which is pretty cool. Because if I cut gluten out as well, I know inflammation will go down. If I go into ketosis, I know inflammation will go down. So that's pretty great, especially considering I'm not taking any supplements and haven't for the last 5 months other than magnesium. Pretty stoked with that. So that's a little like that kind of started my Aries season, started my new astrological year. I'm like, okay, let's do this. Let's go. Let's hit the ground running. And then yesterday, last night, I went to the theatre to see my friends in the production by Eddie Perfect. If you guys know Australian theatre, then you know Eddie Perfect. He's a genius. So The first play that I did for the local theatre company up here was an Eddie Perfect play. It was called The Beast. And I was cast in that, which was so fun. It was so exciting. It was my first foray back into community theatre after, 15 years of not performing on stage at all. And then we ended up winning all the awards. It was great. And so it was a really dark comedy. Like the character that I played in this show, The Beast, was that, I mean, all the characters were awful, and he provides such great social commentary through dark humor, but he's writing in his way with words, and his metaphor usage, like he's just a brilliant writer. And so he's written this musical called Vivid White. And so Bangalore Theatre Company, the theatre company that I'm involved with, they put on this show. And so I went with a group of friends last night. My voice is a bit like husky because I laughed so hard, like could not. And I needed a laugh. I really needed a laugh. And it was just the best 2 hours of laughing. And then we all went to the pub afterwards in Bruns, and it got to 12:30 a.m. Not kidding, on a Sunday. I didn't even drink. Majority of us don't drink. Or there's half of us that like really drink, and the other half of us that don't drink at all. Like I was drinking my water, and then we're like, oh, we better go home. It's like past midnight. Oh my God. But it was so nice. It's like the socializing and the laughing and the I honestly felt like this is what community is. It's medicine, right? And I'm so grateful that I found that community when I moved up here, when I was in the lowest of lows in postpartum depression. And I don't know, it must have been a guardian angel that guided me to join the theatre. I knew no one. And now they're my best friends and my family. And we laugh until we cry. And we spend 6 hours at the pub on a Sunday night just chatting about life. It was beautiful. It was a beautiful night. So that was my weekend. And here we are. But I did want to talk about 1 year of saying yes to you. I'm going to talk it out. I haven't, to be honest, I almost forgot. And it's so funny because I was thinking about it in the shower before. I'm like, when they say your second kid, like, oh, you feel so bad for your second kid because it kind of just has to like get slotted in and like come with you to all the things. And it's nowhere near as like a bigger deal as the firstborn. It's just the way it is. This is exactly the same with books for me. And to start with, it wasn't like saying yes to you. I had to dig so deep to write that book, not only because I was now a mother and I only had 6 hours a week to write it on a 2 month deadline. I should do the maths of that. What's that? It's 18, 36, 60, 72 hours. I wrote that book in 72 hours. Fucking hell. So not only did it like really like it was hard work in churning it out that quickly. I did it, but fuck, it was a lot of pressure. I also edited it when I was living in a caravan and had no idea where I was going to be living. Like my acknowledgements, if you read it, it's like I'm writing this while in a caravan. Like crazy time in my life. But also, I genuinely believed this book would revolutionize the way people said yes to themselves. And like reflecting on the success of my first book, which to date has sold 15,000 copies, and as someone who's relatively unknown in the grand scheme of life, I mean, I when it hit like the 15,000 mark, I only had 15,000 followers on social media. So pretty big result, right? And so I think I naively anticipated that, well, whoever enjoyed the first book, they're going to get the second book. And when I had my last count of readership, which was after 6 months of being on the shelves, about 2,500 books sold. And in fact, some sellers were selling their books back to my publisher because it obviously just isn't selling at the volumes they anticipated. And um, that has been uh, an interesting one. I don't feel sad. I feel like I'm still incredibly proud of what I wrote. And I deeply believe the second book is better than the first book. And I deeply believe if you implement everything in the second book in saying yes to you, your life will change because it's how I built mine from the ground up. Like I used myself as a crash test dummy. I did every single one of those practices. I lean on them to this day. I spoke to the best of the best experts, not just in the country, but over the world. And it took a lot from me, and it's my heart on the page. And there's so much vulnerability in that. Like I open the pages of my high school journal and publish a poem I wrote when I was 13 called Pretend, like about how I was pretending to be okay. It's a poem about masking. Like that was taken from the pages of my year 8 journal, right? That isn't something that's easy to do. I grappled for a long time with the part in the book where I share that I ended my relationship with my dad. I That wasn't something that I'm like, yeah, I'm just going to tell everyone. Like I had to sit with that, and I couldn't in my right conscience write a book about saying yes to yourself without including the biggest thing I've ever done to choose me. And so I think a part of me was like, because I really, really went deep and went so vulnerable and shared so much rawness and like deep personal excavation while living it. Like, there's nowhere in that book where I'm like, I'm healed. It's like I'm there with you in the trenches doing the work. So I'd like to think I'm not coming at it from a superiority complex at all. I genuinely thought it would impact a lot more people than it has. Because my first book doesn't have, in my opinion, the emotional depth that the second book has. I also wrote the second book as a mother and as a version of myself that I'm the most proud of. And I think another part of the second book that was confronting for me was the negative feedback I received on Goodreads, which I've actually blocked that platform. I think I spoke about it in a past episode because nothing good comes from Goodreads. Sorry if you're on it. It's not a platform for authors. Okay. Yeah. Every author looks at their reviews on Goodreads, just so you guys know. Be kind. Be kind. There's no other platform of, well, I don't know that I know of where we can go and criticize someone's work publicly. Fuck no. Anyway, especially when it's your personal life story. And I got, there was a comment on there. I don't want to be reminded of them, by the way. This is just me reflecting. So please don't dig them up and show me because I really don't want to see them. But there was a comment on there being like, um, something about me being privileged, like writing from a place of privilege. And I'm like, I'm so confused by that. Like, where in the book have I bragged about privilege or shown, like, where was my privilege showing? Like that really upset me because I'm like, wait, are we just slapping on like fucking labels here because you didn't like my book, or you think something of me, and so you, I don't know, it was very, very confused label. I'm like, where did we get the privilege from? Did we, anyway, that was confusing. And then someone else saying that the first book was way better than the second book, and the second book, there was nothing new in that book, and that they knew everything that I'd written about. I'm like, really? You knew about neuroaesthetics? Because on every podcast I've been on of like experts around the country, no one has heard of that term before. And yet some random on Goodreads is like, I knew everything that she wrote about in the book. There was nothing new in there. Not to mention the fact that I literally shared about my postpartum depression, my, MCAS, chronic illness, the fact that I ended the relationship with my dad. And it was like, meh, first book was better. And I do think part of it was probably, and I do not mean offense by this, but I do think that part of it was the reviewers were not mothers. And so they actually couldn't relate to the pain that I was speaking to. But I've got to say, I feel, and ugh, I could get in trouble for saying this, but I'm just going to be honest because that's my thing. I feel let down by my publishers. I feel that it should never have been called The People Pleaser's Guide to Saying Yes to You, because it's not a book about people pleasing. And I think it's done the book an incredible disservice because it never was a book about people pleasing. And I said it to them the entire publishing process. I was like, can we just call it Say Yes to You? Can we call it Say Yes to You? And there were the pushback, and they get the final say. And this is what happens when you sell your rights away as an author. Like, the publishers have the final say. And they said no, because the first book did so well. We want to continue with that theme of the People Pleaser's Guide too. And I should have pushed back more because I knew it wasn't, well, I mean, it's not a book about people pleasing. And if you came to any of my launches in Melbourne, in Byron, in Sydney, I reiterate that time and time again. I'm like, this is not a book about people pleasing. This is a book about trauma and like complex PTSD. This is a book about postpartum depression. This isn't just a book for mothers, but it is a book about identity dissolution. And this is the book that you give to anyone going through a hard time in their life where they need to pick up the pieces from where they've been and come back to where they're going. And like in the back of the book, there's this checklist that's like, are you at rock bottom? Start here. Like I've never seen that done before. And it's like anyone who's going through a breakup, who's going through a like divorce or a relationship breakup, anyone who's going through chronic illness, anyone who's going through any kind of mental health challenge, anyone who's going through a crisis in their life, give them that book to read and it will change them if they implement the steps. I guarantee it. And this is why I'm like, so I guess I've been disheartened by the performance of this book because I know the potential it has to impact so many people. And then I have to lean on the part of me that's like trusting that it will end up in the right hands, in the hands that it's meant to. And I've received many, many beautiful words. And I'm so grateful for that. And this is part of when you're an author or any kind of artist, I think you have to become indifferent to both because, you know, like the good reads, bad reviews can send you spiraling. But then if you lean and like expect too much of the like praise and like get validation from that, then you're kind of missing the point. And I think I've had to come to this kind of neutral space of trusting in life and trusting in the book landing in the hands it's meant to at the right time. Um, yeah, there have been some interesting things where, you know, I've gifted it to certain people who just never shared it, which is not didn't happen with the first book. I definitely loved the thing I loved about saying yes to you was the tour I did and just getting to go to Melbourne and be with you guys in Melbourne and Yana from Oakenhaven hosting me in her store and doing cacao with you guys. That was just such a highlight to be able to then go down to Sydney, Gertrude and Alice. Like that was a bucket list. A bucket list moment for me was I wanted to launch a book at Gertrude and Alice in Bondi and such a bucket list moment. Like I keep saying bucket list because it was one of my biggest dreams come true. I had a lineup out the door of you guys wanting to sign your copies. Like it was incredible. Launching it up here at the book room in Byron, one of my favorite bookstores in the world. Like I definitely think the launch of Saying Yes to You was one of the biggest highlights of my career to date. Like launching that, going on the tour, being in person with you all, being interviewed by some of my favorite people, like being hosted by Britt Wild in here in Byron Bay, and then my sister Zig's mom, Carmen in Bondi, and I just loved the celebration and being able to speak about the book. And I didn't have the podcast yet too, so you know, there's been a lot of beauty that's come with the book for sure. I think I just had my expectations a little too high on its performance. And when you're someone who is really driven by performance and you are a high performing person, it's so funny. I know I'm hard on myself. I know selling close to 3,000 copies of a book in its first year is like it puts you in a very small percentage of people. Like the fact that there's still copies of my book on shelves a year later, it's unheard of. Like it's quite rare actually. But because my first book did so well, you can still find my first book on shelves places. It's wild. Because my first book did so well, I don't think I realized that was an anomaly kind of situation. And I think I went into expecting, well, if the first book did good, then this book's gonna fucking go off. And it's been the kind of opposite. I mean, it's not been a flop by any stretch, but it's definitely left food for thought for me around. I mean, my third book comes out next year. That is my children's book. That comes out in February next year. So that feels exciting, but I signed the deal over a year ago. So it also is like, I forget that I'm launching a third book. But when I write my fourth, I'm going to do things differently. And I'm not going to get into detail around what specifically that will look like. I already know what the book will be. Not my fiction book. The fiction book is separate. But my next nonfiction, which I know what it is, I will do things differently. And that's what this book has taught me. So I'm grateful for it for that reason. And yeah, let's come back to me reflecting on it's been a year. Coming up to this year of the book, I want to celebrate, but I don't know how. Made me cry. I think with the first, it felt like such a big deal. It was my first book. It had done so well. And for that first year, I went to lunch with a group of people in my work life who were really supportive of the book, like photographers or people who had, sold a heap of copies to their clients, kept referring the book. Like I'd had a group of women up here and we all went to lunch at the balcony in Byron. And it was actually the day after we got had to evacuate our house because the guy was stockpiling guns and bombs across the road. Remember that story? Anyway, it was that same time. And so I did. I really celebrated. Like I was like, yeah, let's do this. I did a big giveaway. And then this time around, it's like last week, the end of last week, I voice note my ops gal, Queen. We love you so much. And I was like, oh my God, I just realized it's a year since saying yes to you on Wednesday. I should do something. What should I do? And then we decided that we're going to do a giveaway. So keep an eye out for that on Wednesday. Um, I'll tell you guys what it is. I'm giving away a free reading with me and a signed copy of Say Yes to You. So you got to be in it to win it. Keep an eye on my profile for that. But other than that, it feels like it's just, it doesn't feel like a milestone. I don't know. It's very strange. I feel very different about it. And I wonder if I wouldn't. Yeah, I feel like it's less a time thing and more a target thing for me in my head. I'm not saying it's right. I'm just saying that, like, if my book sold 10,000 copies and became a bestseller, like my second book, I would celebrate that. I would go out and like have a dinner for that. Or I would, like, I don't know, just celebrate it, get myself a present. But because it just feels like, okay, it's been a year and I don't know. I'm being really hard on myself, aren't I? I know I am. I'm kind of being confronted, to be honest, guys. Sorry. I'm gonna cry. This is the part of me that it's all my Virgo. It's so South Nodey. I'm fucking textbook, aren't I? It's like, well, I've just moved the goalposts. Like, I'm already past this book because my last royalties were so disheartening that I kind of went, okay, well, let's move on. Let's look at the next creation. Let's look at the next thing. Let's focus on soul talk. Let's focus on making more money. Let's focus on being a mom. Like, and I don't think necessarily some of those things are bad in terms of redirecting my focus. But I do think I have this, well, I know I have this part of me that's like, I'm just going to move the goalpost because like I feel disappointed and a big part of me feels pissed off that I didn't get the support I think this book deserved. And I can't get into more detail than that. Let's open the questions. Far out. It's more emotional than I thought it would be. Okay. How did I come up with the ideas for both of my books? And how much was already mapped out before I got the green light from my publisher? And this question says, I know you said your publisher approached you. So how would you suggest someone go about cultivating a relationship with a publisher? Do you have a different process when you sit down to write your book compared to your normal rituals that include journaling? Oh, these are such good questions. There are so many more, by the way, guys. So let's break it down. How did I come up with the ideas for both my books and how much was already mapped out before I got the green light? So how did I come up with the ideas? People Pleaser's Guide to Putting Yourself First, my first book. I wrote that as an ebook when I was 27. Wasn't even engaged with Trent yet. I was living with this family in the family home. We'd just moved home to save for our Europe trip where I would get engaged. I started seeing clients. I'd just been made redundant from my corporate career. I was working at the jewelry shop and I was a massive people pleaser. And I woke up one day, I remember, and I was like, I need to write an ebook about people pleasing. And the title was in my head, The People Pleaser's Guide to Putting Yourself First. And I sat down at the laptop on a random like Wednesday at 27 years old and I wrote 10,000 words in one sitting. Hours. And the book moved through me, the ebook, I should say. And that ebook was on my website and I was selling it for like $25, $30. And I even had people at the launch of Saying Yes to You bring their printed copy of the very first ebook of Putting Yourself First that I signed. Like, if you guys have been OGs, you'll remember the ebook. And the ebook, ironically, was more expensive than the actual book in the end. And the ebook was like, bless, it was me at 27. It was like Snaps for Holly, it was fine, but it was like it wasn't like revolutionary, and it obviously wasn't like a book by any stretch. And so basically that ebook came to me like channel, the title came to me, and then I wrote the ebook. And then in my out of office, I had on my out of office, download my People Pleasers Guide to Putting Yourself First ebook here. So that was always in my out of office for many, many years, like 6 years or something. In the meantime, I went to a lot of book launch events of other people that I really admired. Friends, yes, that had written books, but also non-friends. Like I was always at Lola Berry's book launches. Even when I worked in corporate, I would go to Dimmicks on George Street, line up to get my book signed. I was always at book launches, always supporting other writers, always being in the room. I was always at launch events. That's where you meet publishers. And that's literally what happened. I met the same publisher who ended up being my publisher at more than one book launch. And I went up and introduced myself and told her I was a writer. And this is not usually me. I'm awkward and like very socially awkward. And I don't initiate. I know that's probably baffling for you guys, but she's a master. And I went up to Kelly and I pitched. And not pitched in terms of like, I've got a book for you, but more like, I'm a writer and like, I'd love to talk about writing books. And, we started running into each other at other events. And that was when I lived in Sydney. So just coming to that question of how do you meet publishers, get in the room where publishers would be. Go to writing festivals, go to writing workshops, go to like follow them and connect with them on social media, engage with their content thoughtfully, constructively. I know on Substack there are so many publishers that now have their own blogs, so connecting with them over there would be a very genius move. And then getting into the room of the writers and the authors at their launches who have the publishers that you really like. Like publishers always share book launch events. My publisher, Affirm, is always sharing the latest book and where their events are. Go to the events, introduce yourself to the publishers, say you're a writer, say you'd love to pitch a concept. That's what I did. And so what happened was I had a meeting, and that turned into me pitching a book idea that I pulled out of my ass because I actually didn't have an idea. I didn't even think of the People Pleasers Guide ebook I'd written. I wanted to write a book called Lighten Up. That was my first book pitch. It was called Lighten Up, and it was your spiritual guide to like lighthearted living or something. And it was none of it was inspired. None of it was, I felt excited about writing it. All I cared about was I'm going to get a book deal. And then I didn't. They came back and rejected the book. The sales team went, there's no legs in this. And that was a really good ego wake up call moment for me to go, hang on a second. Am I wanting to write a book to say that I've written a book and I'm a published author? Like, am I doing it from this egoic place? Or do I actually have something I really want to share with the world? And that was confronting because I had to, and it was during my Saturn return, and I had to sit with myself and go, this has become about the ego. This has become about me being performative. And I did a lot of coaching around that. And I got back to writing for the joy and for me. And I did a lot of long form Instagram captions back then, and a lot of just writing to write rather than I'm going to write a book. And then what actually happened is I ran into the publisher when I moved up here, the same woman who had rejected me at a launch event up here. And it had been a couple of years since the rejection. And she said, oh, Hol, I'd love to connect in and see if you have any book ideas. And I was like, yeah, that's fine. And I, left that meeting going, I don't think I've got anything for her, so I'm just going to leave it. And she emailed me and got my out of office that said, download the People Pleasers Guide to Putting Yourself First, my ebook here. And then she followed up to the out of office and said, Holly, we need to talk about the title, your ebook. Can you send me a copy of this ebook now? And so I did. And I was 6 weeks pregnant at that time. And so I was deeply non-attached to this outcome. I was like, I'm not signing a book right now. I'm literally growing a child. Like it's not a priority. And sure enough, she read the ebook and she went, this has legs. I want you to put together a pitch for me. I want a sample chapter. I want the outline and the breakdown of what this could be. And I want you to give me an introduction as well. can you get it to me in 2 weeks? And I was, when I say I was like first trimester sick, I was like a vomit city. And so I was so just non-attached to the outcome. And I put this proposal together under the title that my ebook was, and it was signed a few weeks later. And I wrote The People Pleaser's Guide to Putting Yourself First from start to finish in sequential order in 3 months. Now, that for me, did I have the arc of how it would be? Well, in my pitch document, I kind of had to have the chapter breakdown. And so that's where I came up with the subsections of putting yourself first, which was, oh, I'm going to get them confused with saying yes to you. It was know thyself, know thy values, know thy energy, know thy people. So that's what I came up with in the pitch document. And then as I wrote, things started to unfold from there. Kind of everything was unfolding as I wrote. With saying yes to you, coming up with that idea was very different. The People Pleaser's Guide had become a bestseller. My publisher got on the phone and said, "Oh, we want another book from you." And I was, I don't know, maybe 9 months postpartum. And I was like, "I've got nothing for you." And then a few months went by. And oh no, I wouldn't have been 9 months postpartum. My book came out when I was 1 year postpartum. So it must have been, God, you can see it was all a freaking blur. A couple of years postpartum, and I was like, there's no way. I am not mentally stable. I am a stay-at-home mum full-time to a baby. Like, when am I writing a book? I didn't even have a nanny. There was no way it was going to happen. And so she came around a few months later and was like, we really want another book from you, Hol. Like, this book is doing really well. We want another book from you. Can you just have a think about, you know, under this bracket of the People Pleaser's Guide, what you could come up with? Like, is there a follow-up? And I was like, no, I don't think there is. I've got nothing for you. And then she's like, can you just have a sit and think about everything you're navigating in postpartum, and like, what are some ideas? And I should have pulled these up because I sent some titles through, and one of them was Saying Yes to You. I think there was like the body image guide to, something like loving yourself, or like it was a heap of like random throwing things at the wall, seeing what sticks. And it was the Saying Yes to You that she circled and went, that I want to talk about that. Now, when I pitched that, again, I was non-attached because I was postpartumly depressed and at the lowest of low, and couldn't kind of care less whether I was signing another book deal or not. But it was something that was creative that I could be distracted by or inspired by. And so I was thinking about, okay, when you're saying yes to yourself, like when I wrote my first book, I was pregnant. I was in the best place in my life. I was talking about putting yourself first. Things are very different now. I'm in one of the lowest points of my life. I am a mother now. I'm a very different person. I don't even know who I am anymore. And I'm like, okay, that's what I want to write about. And that's when I pitched the sections of that book, which is Slow Down, Tune In, Shine Bright. Now, I knew that I wanted to look at the nervous system, and I knew I wanted to track my stress levels and my markers. I did not know that it would be a book about trauma. I never pitched that to them. I never said we were going to look at like CPTSD. I never said we were going to look at like me being chronically unwell. I never said that I was going to talk about the adverse childhood experiences score, and, you know, the correlation between autoimmune condition and trauma. Like, all of that came out in the research as I was writing the book. So the deal was already signed. And then I took this book on a very different path, very different. I never thought it would be trauma heavy. I never thought it would be as vulnerable. A lot of people do say that it's more of a memoir than it is a nonfiction book. I tend to agree, to be honest. Like, as I said, there's pages from my journal in there. That none of that was pitched. And I think this is what happens for me, at least when I'm writing nonfiction. And I know for fiction it will be very different, but for nonfiction, I have to follow where the story wants to go as I write it, because I'm writing about my life and my experiences. And there's only so much that interviews and research can provide when you're writing, for me at least. And I am a 3-5 in human design. I need to write from what I've lived and talk from what I've walked. And so there was no way that I couldn't share parts about my life that were very vulnerable without like having that evidence to show like, yes, I've been here, and you can still pick up the pieces. And that like even me monitoring my HRV and my resting heart rate on my Whoop and showing the difference of what impacted that positively and what didn't, none of that was planned. The only thing that was planned was saying yes to you were the sections slow down, tune in, shine bright. I knew I wanted to talk about tall poppy syndrome. I knew I wanted to talk about imposter syndrome. I knew I wanted to talk about the wounds that we carry when it comes to taking up space. And so what happened was once that book was signed, I do think it was signed off the basis of the fact my first book was a bestseller because publishers see money, like they see dollar signs, let's be real. And so for me, yes, it was a bigger deal. It was a bigger advance. That said, it wasn't massive at all. And that's the other thing is I don't know that I'll out earn my advance for Say Yes to You. I out earned my advance in putting yourself first, which again is rare for published authors. Like it's not and like it's anticipated you'll out earn your advance, but it's not an expectation. I don't know what the stats are, but it's not like a common thing. So I out earned my advance for putting yourself first. I don't know that I will for saying yes to you. And that's another thing that's like, oh, does that make me a failure? No, but it definitely it just doesn't sit well with me, to be honest. I'm just hard on myself. So that I think answers the question. Let me see. Yeah, how much was already mapped out. I kind of mapped as I went after I yeah, put the pitch together. Do you have a different process when you sit down to write your book compared to your normal rituals, including journaling? Yes, yes. So my process for like when I write in general, not a book, is journaling is every day in the morning, pen to paper, stream of consciousness. Writing like a caption or a blog post is I'll get the wave of inspiration, I'll get the hit, and I'll channel it when I want to. And this is why my Substack's being kind of paused indefinitely because although there is a post coming, um, I haven't felt that hit of inspiration for long form. When it's a book, you're on a deadline. So you actually don't have the luxury of waiting for inspiration to hit. And so for me, with the book writing on deadlines, I needed much more structure, especially the second book, especially Saying Yes to You, because I had 6 hours of child-free time to write. 3 hours on a Tuesday morning, 3 hours on a Thursday. And I had to hit 50,000 words in 2 months, maybe 2.5 months. I actually had a longer deadline by 2 weeks, but I asked them for a shorter deadline, lol, because we were going on our family trip to Bali and I didn't want to have a deadline hanging over my head while we were away. So I actually said to them, I need to get it to you earlier than the deadline you gave me. And they're like, you're the first author ever that's asked for less time. So I had to be really disciplined. And so those 3 hours of writing, I had no choice but to get words on the page. I couldn't dilly-dally. And so what I did is I topped and tailed my writing sessions. So I did what I could to cultivate an energy of creative inspiration because I knew my channel needed to be open. I needed to be able to tap in. And I literally would sit and meditate to the same meditation every writing day, which was a David G one on the Aini Center. No, that is very different. That's a very different word. Agni Center. Anyway, the fire of creative life force. And I meditated on that. And then I'd drink my cacao. I'd put my music on. I'd listen to Noah Khan. I actually have a Say Yes to You playlist on Spotify. I'll put it in the Solis group. And they were the songs I listened to as I was writing. And then I'd put white noise on and type. So I don't handwrite my long form books. I would type. And I literally wrote. I would have some like ideas in my notes, not that many though. For the most part, it was like I wrote from start to finish. I wrote in sequential order, and I've done that for both of my books. And I just think that's the way my brain works. I don't know that that's the right way to do things. I think everyone's different. This is why I haven't actually taught people how to write because I just think it's such a personal process. But that's the process that worked for me to get words on the page, to just diligently show up and be committed to the words. And you edit later. Like you just, so long as there are words on the page, you can go back and reread and edit. At the end of every day, every morning, I would finish about with a half an hour to go, and then I'd read over what I'd written and read it aloud and just like finesse as I went, so that when it came to editing, I didn't have to do it in one fell swoop. And that definitely helped me. So my writing for work and for book process is very, very different. It's less reliant on inspired download and more cultivating practices that put me into channel so that I could be as clean in my channel as possible to get down. I do think a part of this, especially nonfiction, oh no, all work like this. And it doesn't have to be books, it could be writing songs. I mean, I know Taylor Swift does it. Like it is channeling. It is channeling. Like for me, when I'm sitting and writing my books, something bigger guides me, something bigger moves me and says, hey, you need to look at the correlation between adverse child experiences and autoimmune conditions in women. Hey, have you joined that dot yet, Holly? What about chronic illness and inflammation and postpartum depression? Have you joined that dot yet, Holly? Like that is channel, that is guides, that is like wisdom that I'm then grabbing and going, oh, okay, I'm going to run with that. And that would always come through in the meditations when I sat to write. So I hope that gives you a little insight into the process. Uh, how was writing your second book different from your first? I know you were pregnant when you wrote book one. Did book two feel different emotionally, creatively, or practically, or was it similar? Oh, great question. It was the same in the structure, the way that I approach like the process of writing. Obviously, when I wrote the first book, I didn't have a child. So I had unlimited hours in the day, every day of the week to write. And so I was able to get a lot more words on the page a lot quicker. But because of that, I actually like dawdled a bit more with getting words on the page, you know? And I was able to take my time with it. I was like, it was luxurious. Like I would have a lovely, beautiful, long morning routine. And then I'd drop in and write a bit. Then I'd go for a walk and catch up with a friend. Then I'd come home and write a bit more. And then I'd do my 2 hours of writing for the day. And then I have a great night's sleep. And then like it was very indulgent. And yes, there was some structure, but I actually had, even though it was a shorter deadline, I think the first book was 2 months and the second book was 2.5 months. For the first book, I had every day. I had all the hours in the day. I could extend time, and I was in my second trimester, so I was feeling great. So yeah, the second book, I had 6 hours a week. I was a stay-at-home mum without any care. I got our nanny to write the second book, and thank God for her because she's the best. We love her so much. Um, so I had no help otherwise. I was chronically unwell. I didn't realize I was living in a moldy home, but I was living in a home that was incredibly isolated. I was very depressed and I was inflamed and sick and tired. And my HRV when I wrote that book was like 29. Like I was barely alive. So it was emotionally, not only was it so hard because of the headspace I was in, and when I wrote Putting Yourself First, I was in one of the best headspaces of my life, genuinely, easily one of the best times of my life. And then the writing the second book was one of the hardest times of my life. But also the fact that I was re-traumatizing myself as I wrote the second book because I was revisiting a lot of painful parts of my life. And I actually had to like do a lot of work, like trauma informed work with practitioners as I wrote the book to ensure that I wasn't re traumatizing myself. And this is why I really hoped for the book to be received well because it took me down. And I wanted it to be, I wanted the payback for that. Yeah. Um, yeah, it was a hard book to write. Um, how am I celebrating myself in this book's birthday? Oh my God, guys. I don't know. Giving you guys a free reading with me. I don't even know why I'm crying, I think. Just reflecting on the version of me that wrote that book. I really feel for her. I really feel for her. And I think a big part of that time, the book actually got me through. It gave me focus outside of motherhood and my own. Well, I got to be my own focus because I was saying yes to myself as I wrote the book. I think that's where the emotion's stemming from, is I really feel for that version of me. And there's obviously a happy ending to the story because I started the podcast saying like my markers are better than they've ever been. I'm living in this beautiful home. Everything's really, really great. And I guess I didn't expect this book to just be a footnote in my story. I really thought this book was going to be my legacy. Um, and I am realizing that my legacy is actually the mother that I am. And I'm really proud of that. But as someone who is incredibly driven and all my life since I was my daughter's age has wanted to write books, it's hard when you feel misunderstood in what you've shared with the world, especially when it's your heart on the page. Like I get emails all the time, guys, from Amazon bots being like, your book only has 2 ratings on Amazon. And it's like, why? I don't understand why people aren't rating and reviewing my books, but I also don't want to be like begging people to do that. And so it's like, I don't know. Writing books is very, very, very emotionally charged. It's not for the faint-hearted. Thank God I have some authors in my life because we all talk about this stuff all the time. Like this isn't new conversation. We talk roast it all the time. It's psychologically fucked because you are putting your heart and soul out for the world to criticize and judge. Um, Especially when you write books the way I do. So how am I celebrating? I don't know. I don't know. This has really forced me to have a think about that because, yeah, I'm celebrating by doing a giveaway for you guys. Someone's going to win a copy of my book. Hopefully, I'll sell a few more copies. That would be nice. But like celebrating myself for 1 year, I'm going to have to think about that. If you guys have ideas, let me know. I might just buy myself something. I just don't know what. Maybe I'll have a nice bath on Wednesday or something. Watch this space. Oh yeah. How have I changed since I wrote the book compared to now? Oh my God, love that. Love that. That's the last question. I am absolutely not who I was. Absolutely not at all. Not even close. In my health, my mental health, my physical health, in my body, in the way it functions. When I wrote that book, I don't like going back to this. I would have to brace myself to unstack the dishwasher because it would exhaust me. I was so unwell. But I had to mum. I couldn't break. I think that's what this emotion is I can write about it all I like and talk about it all I like, but unless you've lived it, I think it's really hard to comprehend. Like, I'm so not okay. And so it's a timestamp of that time in my life where, despite that, I was still able to write and work on myself. And there have been many times in my life where I've had to just go to the depths and pick up the pieces. And that was really one of those highlighted times. It was the hardest time in my life. And now I'm in a time in my life that is not that. And that is just so beautiful. And I guess that's another point of reflection, is like really reflecting on how far I've come. Because I finished writing the book when I was living in the caravan, right? I was editing in my caravan era, but by the time it launched, I'd been living in this home for 6 months. So I was 6 months into my healing. I was feeling good, and then it's like it's been a year since that now. It's like, oh my God, it's been 18 months since the caravan era, like the worst time of my life. It's like, okay, like things are just getting better and better and better. And I feel just, I'm a completely different person. I'm a completely different person to the person that wrote that book. And I just feel incredibly sad. for that version of me. And I think that that book is representative of such a hard time in my life that it's so charged when it comes to finding. I think what I'm trying to say is if I felt that this book was creating more impact, then I think I'd feel much better about it. But I don't know. I know there are 3,000 people in the world that have read it, have bought it. Um, this is just a real shadowy part of me, guys, that's like you can see I'm my own worst enemy. Um, yeah. It'll be really nice, I've got to say, to launch a book that is not nonfiction. It'll be really nice to launch my children's book. That's going to be so great. We haven't found the illustrator yet, but that'll be so beautiful to see my poetry come to life. And I can't wait for you guys to see that book and that version of me. Like that book is beautiful and poetic and stunning and like special and like all of my work in it's poetic. It's just beauty. And I think that's going to feel really special to launch. And I love that with saying yes to you, I still got to have the big launch celebration a year ago and go on tour. I think I really needed that. But in reflection of the book itself, I don't know that I fully have reflected. So that's why there's lots of emotional charge here. Guys, thank you for walking down that road with me. That was a lot. Um, on that, actually, keep an eye out for the giveaway on Wednesday on my feed. One of you is going to win a free reading with me, plus a signed copy of Saying Yes to You. If you do want to celebrate my book for me, do you know what would be great? Go buy a copy or leave a review on Booktopia or Amazon or like that. That means so much. If you've already bought a copy, like it means a lot. It really does. And also, I am actually having a sale this week to celebrate the new astrological year. So if you've missed it, you've got until Monday next week. I have 20% off all of my digital products. Yes, including Psychic Studies. Psychic Studies is down to under $300. Now, I need to express these products are going to be increasing in price. So, more than the sale price, they'll go back to their normal price and then some in a few weeks' time. So this sale is only until next Monday. You get 20% off all my digital products. But I reckon if you're like, where do I spend my money? It's either Psychic Studies or it's Manifestation of Magic, like my signature core programs, like get on it. I've also created children's astrology readings that are also discounted. So they're pre-recorded. You don't need to be available to make a certain time. I know it's hard when you have kids. So I'm going to link those below as well. They're very, very cheap, but they're going to increase in price as of next week as well. Plus an annual membership to the Heart Space. You're going to get 2 months free. So you're going to buy 10 months, get 2 months free. Thank you for being here. Thank you for supporting my work. Thank you for being amazing. To say also, thank you for being patient with me about the timing of this episode 2 weeks in a row. I'm going to release a bonus episode for you on Friday. I'm not going to tell you much more than that. So you'll get your What's a Vibe on Wednesday because I know we missed it last week. You're going to get What's a Vibe on Wednesday and you're going to get a bonus episode on Friday. So watch this space. Have a beautiful evening/day wherever in the world you are. And I'll be back in your ears on Wednesday.